guys? Brian Stevens here over at Mortgage Shots. Hey, check us out at mortgageshots.com. Go ahead and hit subscribe. When you do that, you'll get our 5-minute daily video talking about the real estate industry, the mortgage industry, maybe a little sales nourishment, myself and Joanna. So make sure you do that. We won't spam you. We don't sell your information off. So that would be fantastic. And of course, if you like the content that we're bringing to you, do us a big favor and share it. Today, which is a Sunday, this is going to be a part of our show tomorrow as it's going to go through some editing. This is a bigger story than what we can cover today, but I feel like it needs to be discussed because it has such incredibly huge implications. What we're going to be talking about and what I'm going to be showing you is who I believe to be behind basically most of the malice that we see right now in the mortgage and the real estate industry. Of course, I'm talking to lawsuits. Of course, I'm talking about lawsuits. Now, it can't be ignored, to me at least, that some of the information in these lawsuits might hold some merit. I do believe, however, that they are by and large not accurate. They're not an accurate representation of what's going on in the mortgage industry. It's not an accurate representation of what's going on in the real estate industry. But more importantly, it's the unintended consequences of the outset of this. For example, NAR has done this thing all wrong. NAR has done an injustice to their agents who have been giving them dues for years and years and years. So the whole idea that NAR's paying a price and getting exposed for what they are, which is just a bunch of profiteers, that doesn't bother me. But what's being alleged there is ridiculous. What's taking place in the mortgage industry right now with lawsuits, I see wild narcissism. I see just out of control blaming, which has been going on now for a number of years, which is really, frankly, kind of given a black eye to a lot of the mortgage industry. However, I think the basis of these lawsuits, by and large, does not have a foundation, okay? So it's really separating the two. But see, here's the thing. As all of us little peasants, and I would include NAR and everybody else in that, and everybody in the mortgage space, as we sit here and bicker and bloat and peacock around and blame and point and project and do all of these things, and we're doing this down here as the plebeians, the ones down in steerage, we've got the ones who are actually captaining the ships up above us, and they're laughing their ass off at our inability to go out there and put out a united front and actually try to fight against them. And in the process, they're doing what they've always done. They're taking advantage of an industry. However, in our case, I think what might be happening is I think that we might be seeing right before our eyes some of the largest theft ever of one given industry. So I want to get right into this and go over it with you. Of course, I'm talking about my friends over at BlackRock. Now, I don't know if you know anything about BlackRock. I don't really. But I do know that they have their hands in everything. And I can connect a couple of dots, which I want to do today. But would it surprise you to know that BlackRock is the largest or one of the largest investors of, or owners of, Trulia, the National Association of Realtors, we're going to get into that one, Realtor.com, Zillow, Open Door, and so many other facets of the mortgage and real estate space. Now, to give you an idea of what BlackRock actually looks like, let me show you this. Here is BlackRock and or Vanguard. What you have to understand here is BlackRock and Vanguard are essentially synonymous. They're the largest investors in each other, which really kind of make them one company under two names. But did you know that they are among the 3 largest institutional investors for 505 out of 505 of the S&P 500? Now, as we go down this list, I want you to just kind of understand what Vanguard owns in this country. It's interesting right here. Did you notice when all these lawsuits that were going down about NAR, did you notice how Berkshire Hathaway came away from that relatively unscathed? And I guess the question is do we find that really a coincidence, or do we think there might be some meat on the bone considering the largest investor in Berkshire Hathaway is Vanguard and BlackRock? But again, as we go down here, it truly is a who's who. But you know what they don't have? What they don't have is they don't own the largest component of the United States economy, and that's housing. That's all the aspects of housing, everything that we do, right? This is pretty scary, isn't it? You see, the housing industry is a multi-trillion-dollar industry, and it's been controlled by a bunch of real estate agents, real estate brokerages, and the National Association of Realtors. I mean, if you look at the public reputation of real estate agents right now, they're not thought on very well by the public at large, are they? Now, that could be through some fault of our own, or that could be through manipulation of the media, because who owns all the media companies? It really does kind of look like it might be BlackRock. Yeah, and this is all still BlackRock. Anyways, you get the idea. If you want to go check this out, all you have to do is go to BlackRockVanguardWatch.com and you can see it. But I want to show you a little bit about how I think this manipulation goes, and I want to let you know as an agent what I think you can do, and as a loan officer what you can do. Okay, so here's the biggest one. This just came out last Friday. Now, what the courts have done is they cleared the path for the reopening of an antitrust probe of realtor groups. So, of course, we know we have the lawsuits, some that have been settled, some that are still ongoing, and some that are yet to be filed. But you see, that's going to take place in the private sector, isn't it? But what's happening right now is we have the Department of Justice and we have the courts going back in and saying, hold, hang tight a second here. We want to reopen these antitrust probes against realtor groups. And what's the reason for that? It's pretty simple here. And this is from the DOJ. I want you to remember that. The DOJ. Real estate commissions in the United States greatly exceed those in any other developed economy, which, by the way, I never knew I wanted to be Britain or Spain. And this decision restores the Antitrust Division's ability to investigate potentially unlawful conduct by the National Association of Realtors that may be contributing to the problem. This is according to the Assistant Attorney General Jonathan Cantor of the Justice Department's Antitrust Division. Here's what we know about this. They're opening this up right now. So they're saying, well, hang tight a second here. We still think that we have a problem going on in real estate. But did you know that this was already settled at one point? Did you know that we had put this behind us? In fact, they had dropped the investigation as they had dropped other lawsuits. But somehow, inexplicably, these things have a new life. They came back alive. The DOJ has decided to dust this off and look into what real estate agents are doing right now. Now, that doesn't seem comprehensive to me. That seems contradictive to me. We've already settled this case. You don't hear the Supreme Court going and listening to the same case 10 times over, do you? No, they go in, they form an opinion, they vote on it, they render a judgment, and they move on to the next case. Yet, for some reason, the DOJ investigation on what's going on with the National Association of Realtors, and by extension, the multiple listing systems across the country, and by extension from that, those who participate in the multiple listing systems and those who pay dues over to NAR, and that, of course, is going to be our brokers and our real estate agent partners out there. Well, I think you know where we're going with this one right now. Where I'm going with this right now is I believe that it's BlackRock that's behind it. Why is that? Well, first of all, let me go into this one more time from the DOJ up top. If you look at it, real estate commissions in the United States greatly exceed those in any other developed. Oh, okay, we got that one. All right, here's the one down here. In our view, so long as listing agents can continue to make and advertise compensation offers to buyers agents, steering incentives will still exist. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm kind of thinking that's what our economy is built on, isn't it? Isn't that the whole thing, supply and demand? Isn't that the whole thing with private industry where we could go out there and we could set our price and we could be self-determined with our business and with our industry? Isn't that part of what we do? I mean, if I'm going to go to Chevron and gas is going for $4.50 a gallon and it's going for $4 across the street over at Shell, I'm going to go and get the $4 gas. It doesn't mean that Chevron is doing anything wrong, but I, as the consumer, can go out there and make my choice, my decision where I want to go and what I want to do. But of course, with the scenario of the gas stations that I gave you, it's never that apparent, isn't it? What it is Shell will be $4.49 and Chevron will be $4.48, or they're going to be exactly the same. You don't think there's collusion and price fixing going on over there? Where does the oil come from? The oil comes from OPEC. OPEC is a cartel. A cartel, by definition, is price fixing. But we don't seem to be too worried about that right now, do we? We're not making this a conversation for national debate right before the Olympics, right before the elections, are we? No. You see, the idea when I read this here, in our view, as long as a listing agent can continue to make and advertise compensation offers to buyer's agents, steering incentives are going to still exist. And my answer is, yeah, so what? Of course that's going to be the case. But the thing is this, as a real estate agent, do they not deserve to earn an income for what they do? And has anywhere in this lawsuit, has it been addressed what real estate agents do inside and outside of that transaction? You see, if you're getting that commission, that 2.5%, that 1.5%, that 1%, that 3%, whatever the commission is for that buyer side, does that commission continue working for that community after that transaction closes? And the answer is yes. So if we're saying that real estate agents are making too much, then I want you to qualify for me what would be a reasonable wage based on the work that they're doing. Because in no other industry out there are we doing this. We don't have a Department of Justice investigation on what Taylor Swift is making right now when she does a concert. She spends 2.5 hours out there somewhere and she makes, $10 million. Nobody's talking about that. Nobody's talking about what the lawyers are making right now. Why is that not a topic of conversation? I think their compensation for these class action lawsuits is going to far exceed their value. And what their value is to be demonstrative to the country at large. Why is it that this is a topic of conversation in real estate and lending now? Lenders, you have to understand, this is a big one for you too. This is going to go bigger than United Wholesale Mortgage, and this is going to go bigger than, Nexa and the other brokerages that they're going to target is steering all their business over to United Wholesale Mortgage. I don't even want to have the conversation if they're doing that or not. I mean, you could go ahead and break that down on either side and go ahead and find merit about the rights and wrongs of it. You certainly could go ahead and do it. I mean, you could make definitive, clear-cut cases why it's right or wrong. But here's one thing. I took that whole, that real estate mortgage test here recently. Nowhere in there doesn't say I have to go get my borrower the lowest interest rate in the country. It doesn't say that. We've got our HMDA information. We got our SAFE Act stuff. We got our anti-steering. We've got RESPA. We've got ECOA. We have all of this, but nowhere in any of that does it say that the loan officer or the mortgage brokerage company or the mortgage bank company is required to go ahead and get the person the lowest rate in the country. Yet that seems to be the argument of merit that's being made right now. And if you guys know, I am not arguing on behalf of United Wholesale Mortgage. I'm just pointing out the disparities of what is taking place right now. So as a real estate agent, let me ask you this. If a real estate agent cannot earn a commission, and let's just be frank about this for a couple of seconds. If you're doing a government loan, if you're a lender or you're a real estate agent, you know exactly where I'm going with this thing right now. If you're doing an FHA loan right now, or oftentimes if you're doing a VA loan right now, you've got a buyer who doesn't have the down payment, let alone the money it would cost to go get legal representation to cover them on a transaction. We know that to be true. This is going to so wildly, disproportionately hurt the underserved and oftentimes minority communities that we have all across our country right now, but nobody's talking about that. And here's the whole point. Here's the other point on this whole one when it comes down to commissions. If the seller is paying the buyer side and the listing agent commission, are they actually paying twice as much? No, because that buyer who's going to get that representation based off the sale of that property is one day going to, conceivably own that property. And then when they go down the road to sell their property, they are going to be the person who is paying the buyer side transaction going forward. In short, how the system is set up right now, nobody is overpaying. The listing agent is paying double the... No, they're not. No, they're not, because when that person bought that house, they had their representation paid for. And it's the only way it works in this country because everybody's broke. They're f***ing broke. Everybody is. Unless, of course, you own a house, you've got massive amounts of equity right now. You know, all that equity that everyone's gained so nobody else can afford to buy a house right now? So nobody is double dipping. We're just changing the timelines, and we're changing the timelines to ensure that we don't leave underserved communities behind, but nobody is making this argument. It's absurd. But I want to get back to the conversation at hand, BlackRock. Now, get a load of this. At the end of the first quarter in 2021, BlackRock had more than $9 trillion in assets under management. To put this into perspective, only 2 countries in the world have GDP figures larger than BlackRock's total AUM. U.S. GDP totals about $21 trillion. China's $14 trillion. Even fiscally responsible Germany only has a GDP of $3.8 trillion. I mean, BlackRock is not a business. BlackRock is a country in and of itself, into itself. But here's the point that you guys have to understand. And as being as powerful as they are, and being as parasitical as they are, and being as greedy as they are, wanting to go ahead and grab the United States housing market and make that their own, there's a number of different ways they can accomplish this. They own everything on the S&P 500, and that's going to include a number of different media outlets, so certainly we're going to keep their name out of the picture, aren't we? But here's the other part, which is even more insidious, and frankly, if you want to have a Department of Justice investigation, this is where it should be. It's not too surprising that the American presidents have sought out expertise and advice of former and current BlackRock executives. President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris even followed former President Barack Obama, turning to BlackRock when they sought our economic and fiscal advisors for the new president's cabinet. Brian Deese, a former BlackRock investment executive, serves as a National Economic Counsel. Adeyemo, I believe, former chief of staff to BlackRock's chief executive, is the top official at the Treasury Department in the United States right now. Formerly the global chief investing strategist at BlackRock, Michael Pine is now the chief economic advisor to Vice President Kamala Harris. And we should know that Deese and Pyle, they also worked underneath the Obama administration. And to go even further on it, we've got even more folks over there at BlackRock who have gone into the administration and the cabinet of the President of the United States right now. Yes, this is the same BlackRock, which would be the 3rd largest country in the world. Here's what I was talking about. Those articles that I just put up there, they didn't take into consideration, like I said, the additions that we've got over here. So it's no stretch to say that the president, the vice president, the cabinet, and certainly both branches of Congress are being influenced not only by those who are serving inside their cabinets, inside the government, but also those who are lobbying from the outside. Why is this important? Well, it's important because all of the companies that I showed you just a moment ago have their largest investors, or some of their largest investors in them, are BlackRock. Now think about this for a second, guys. This is kind of crazy, right? right? When you think of how big the United States housing market is, it's massive, absolutely massive, a multi-trillion-dollar industry. Remember just a couple of years ago, this made a lot of billionaires in the mortgage industry. But remember just a few short years ago when we put something like $7 trillion through a 4,000 or 35 or $3 trillion funnel, and we did it. Everybody ramped up, hired a bunch of supporting staff, got more doctors, more processors, more underwriters, all of that stuff, and loan officers were out there and just killing it, selling 2.5% interest rates, courtesy of the Federal Reserve, raising their balance sheet to the tune of about $9 trillion overnight, something they had never done before, something frankly they shouldn't have done, because in doing so they torpedoed the entire housing market, and we're trying to find a way to get out of that. We got to untie that knot right now. But you can see the BlackRocks out there saying we own the oil industry, we own the media, we own the politicians right now. What is the biggest component in the United States? What industry, what business have we not been able to infiltrate? Oh, it's going to be 25% of the United States GDP, which is going to be housing. If we are 25% or 35% of our country's GDP and we are 40% of the world's GDP, do you know what that means? That means that there's a good chance that the United States housing market, what we do for a living, both realtors and lenders, we have the most profitable, largest, most money-moving industry anywhere in the entire world. Now that's got to hurt BlackRock's feelings, don't you think? They want to have their hands in that. At least I would if I were them, right? That kind of makes sense, doesn't it? So what do we do? What do we do? Well, here's what I think we do. Well, let's go out there and buy Zillow, okay? Largest shareholders include Caledonia, that's private investment firm, and then number 2 is Vanguard, number 3 is BlackRock. Between the two of them, they own more Zillow than anybody. Now, who would benefit? Think about this. If we get rid of the real estate agents out there, which it looks like we're going to do, and if it's not good enough with the lawsuits, if that didn't put the last nail in the coffin, well, then what we'll do is we'll make sure that the Department of Justice goes out there, investigates them, and ensures there is no way for a buyer's agent to make money, and if it screws people in the process, so be it. Because that's exactly what's taking place right now. This is absurd. It's insanity, and it's happening right before our eyes, and nobody's talking about the truth of this. But you see, Zillow and the likes of Open Door and a lot of these other fintech companies, you might not remember this, but just a few short years ago, they made a run at the real estate industry. And make no bones about this, guys. Open Door and Zillow, they have mortgage divisions too, and they want to use them. So Zillow decided to go get away from the advertising platform that they had, where they were aggregating properties of your listings given to them from your state associations and your national associations. We'll get into that in a couple of seconds here. But it was just willfully given over to them. All of your listings. And I always said, why in the hell are you doing this? This makes no sense. It would seem to me from an outsider looking in on this thing that NAR is working against, not for, but against the best interest of real estate agents and their brokerages. Why in the hell would they do that? More on that in a second. But what happened? Well, I'll tell you what happened here. Hold on. I'm going to get into this real quickly. So here's what happened. A number of years ago, Zillow was aggregating all of your properties. How were they doing that? They weren't acting the role of a broker, did not have access to your MLSs, and frankly, were breaking the rules of most of those guidelines set within multiple listing systems across the country. I know this through a company that I owned and work with. We dealt with aggregation too. So we had this little aggregation tool, and it was called ListHub. Now, ListHub would give us access to, let's just call it 2/3 of all the listings in all the multiple listing systems across the country. About 1/3 of the multiple listing systems did not want to participate with us because guess what? They weren't owned by NAR, which is another fallacy that's being perpetrated right now. So we got about 2/3 of the listings, and we had to go give all of this money to get access to all of those listings so we could take it and jumble it up and make single property websites, go ahead and make virtual tours and all that, open house flyers, all that great stuff. So we had to give money to this company called ListHub. ListHub was owned by Move Incorporated. Move Incorporated also owned Realtor.com. Well, who owned Move Incorporated? The National Association of Realtors did. So the same feed that was feeding Zillow was the same feed that was feeding Realtor.com. Now, you as a realtor at that time, you guys, I guess by extension of being members of NAR, then owned Realtor.com. You were never doing as good as Zillow did, but you owned the data. You actually owned it. Zillow had to get it from you. The National Association of Realtors, through Move Incorporated, through ListHub, the same aggregator as Realtor.com, was selling all of your information off to the competition. Don't you find that strange? So what happened somewhere in here is the National Association of Realtors got into a relationship with News Corp. News Corp, Fox News, and all of Rupert Murdoch's companies are underneath News Corp. Who is the biggest investor in News Corp? You got it. BlackRock. You can't get away from this stuff. So Zillow's looking at this over here and says, uh-oh, all these idiot stooges over here at the National Association of Realtors who are giving me all of the data I need to go ahead and super exceed what's going on over there with these real estate agents. If I were to go into the lending and real estate business, now we got News Corp in here, they might cut us off. BlackRock's going to do what BlackRock wants to do, right? So at that point, Zillow decided that they needed to move their model over, lose List Hub, become a brokerage in every market in the country, gain access to everybody's multiple listing system, because once they've done that, they've gotten off the tit. They've gotten off the tit of something that you guys used to own. There was a time back in the day, you guys could have just shut that off. NAR could have just said, you know what? I don't think I want Zillow's money anymore. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to build Realtor.com out. I'm going to make that the greatest site in the world. We're going to control all the data because it's ours anyways. We're going to control all the listings and all the opportunities out there. We are going to do this. The largest trade group in the history of the world. All of that stuff, my ass, goes out the window. They sold you down river. And by the way, the National Association of Realtors didn't even keep anybody on the board over there at Realtor.com to protect your namesake. That being a realtor, they sold that one completely out too. True story. So anyways, you've got BlackRock over there toggling the strings of all of us little puppets up here on the stage. And they're looking at the market and they're saying, you know what? We think we have enough control right now. We own Realtor.com. We own Zillow, which means we have mortgage divisions. Oh, by the way, we also own Open Door and other fintech companies that are going into the real estate and the lending game. And they're going to have a united front, all backed by the same company. And they're going to charge at real estate agents because after all, you're just a bunch of uneducated fools. You don't have any business going up against the third largest country in the world. Isn't that what we just read? They make more money than Germany does. So they go up against the real estate agents. And what happens? Well, COVID comes in, the market tanks, all of these ridiculous algorithms that they had over there at Open Door and Zillow, they didn't work well, and their stock values plummeted, and they just took it in the pants. That's what happened. Remember when Zillow's stock value went down by about 75%? Well, go and look at what happened with the OfferPats, the Open Doors, the Redfins, and all those other fintech companies who were vying to compete against traditional real estate agents. What happened then? They tanked. Every single one of them. It didn't work. What happened with the real estate agents? Well, real estate agents are used to not making a whole bunch of money. In spite of what these lawsuits say, they just kept chugging along, didn't they? So the real estate industry survived under NAR, in spite of NAR, and real estate agents across the country kept representing their clients on these transactions. Representing the fiduciary of these clients on both buyer and seller sides, as they should, which, by the way, any replacement would not be doing that. Continuing to go out to mixers, continuing to take their commissions and reinvesting it in communities, the lifeblood of every small town across this country. Yeah. Now, I got to think that made the BlackRocks of the world a little pissed off. So what do we do? Well, we got to double down. Let's see. How do we do this? Third largest country in the world. Let's go find investments in the cabinet of the presidency. What president? Doesn't matter. Let's get in. We're the big guys. That person's not a big guy. They're just a stooge for us as well. Let's go buy all the alternative to real estate agent companies out there. Let's own them all. Then maybe we go out there and we find a way to put together a lawsuit to disparage the reputation of real estate agents. I said this from day one. It didn't matter if you won this lawsuit or if you lost this lawsuit. It didn't matter. And the reason for that is that you lose either way. If the real estate community lost this major lawsuit that we had over in Missouri, all of your clients who signed this class action lawsuit would have said, see, now my agent's screwing me a second time. Because the narrative has been put out through the media that you make too much money and you don't do shit for it. What media? That's right, the media that's owned by BlackRock and Vanguard. So what we do is we sully the the reputation of real estate agents out there. If you win the lawsuit, your clients now think, well, they screwed me. I'm going to start looking for a better alternative to real estate agents because they charge too much money, even though I'm just going to take a cursory examination of this. Then I'm not going to get beneath the surface to find out what the hell is really going on. And if you lost the lawsuit as you did, it vindicates these people, your past clients, for signing up for these lawsuits. Aha, my realtor did in fact screw me. We can't use them again. And somewhere for their signature and their naivety, they're going to get a check for about $25. That's what it'll be for you charging too much money on these transactions, even though it's still cheaper than every alternative. And those are the ones that BlackRock are going to be bringing to the table to replace real estate agents. So the idea is if we're going to take a second run at the single largest industry in the country, if not the world, then we have to have a much more comprehensive approach to this. The first time we came in here, we took them for granted, kind of like Rocky 1. Apollo Creed took Rocky for granted in the first fight, right? Oh, there's no way this guy's guy's going to beat me, right? I'm going to go in here and just tear him up. Well, what they did is they underestimated what real estate agents were going to do, and then they didn't see, they were probably behind it, but they didn't see this pandemic coming, and it absolutely torpedoed them the front time. So if we're going to take a second run, because this is the only industry that we don't own now, we better have a more comprehensive approach. So we can't just go out there with technology. We can't just go out there with buying all the companies, because it didn't work last time. Something is taking place that we are not accounting for. And that something BlackRock wasn't accounting for was that people are going to work with the person who's either to the left or to the right of them, rather than working with a company that's situated or located somewhere in Washington, D.C., somewhere down on Wall Street, or somewhere over here in the Silicon Valley. Nope, they like that realtor right next door to them. I'd rather work with that realtor. I'd rather work with that local lender. That's why we kill them all the time. We kill them all the time because the only thing BlackRock can't do is they can't put somebody over at your kid's baseball game, over at your daughter's softball game. Can't do that. They can't form the relationships and the bonds that you guys have had for all these years. And it turns out those bonds that you have inside your community as a loan officer, as a real estate agent, are more powerful than anything BlackRock can do. Man, that had to piss them off. They got a lot invested in this right now. Doesn't matter, they own everything. So what happens is they go back, they regroup, they lick their wounds, and they come back with a more comprehensive attack at you. We put more people in the White House than we've ever had before, and growing. We make sure that the DOJ wipes off that case, dusts off that case, and opens it again. Remember, something that doesn't happen, that's happening right now. I'm asking why. Why in the hell is that happening right now, right? We make sure that we own all the companies. Well, we already got all the companies, right? And then we go out there and we instigate and we go ahead and we back in some capacity, and I'm just telling you, this is my opinion, you back in some capacity a number of different lawsuits, or you get the right law firms and you point them in the right direction and say, go sue the shit out of these people right now. We bought the judges, we got the political system, and oh, by the way, we got all the media. Go after that, because you're going to get 30% of the $416 million. Now, that's a lot of money. Oh, you're gonna get 30% of what Remax settled for. You're gonna get 30% of what Keller settled for, what all the Realogy brands settled for. You're gonna make hundreds of millions of dollars. All you got to do is go out there and fight this thing. Fight this thing in this class action. Everybody's on the books. The game is fixed. The game is rigged right now. Go out there and do it. See, because here's why I say that. Do you realize that this case already came forward in Illinois a couple years earlier, and they lost it? The DOJ had already dropped this. The case had already been lost. And if you look at the merit of the case, it's absolutely ridiculous. Lenders, look what's going on in your industry right now. Same type of shit. You know, I saw Matt Ishba blames, Dan Gilbert for being behind this. We call that projection. That looks like, for most people who watch this stuff on a regular basis, that looks like more projection than anything. Projection works something like this. Do something to somebody and then blame them for doing it. Now, again, you could agree or disagree. I don't want to get in the weeds on that. But the truth is, I think this is a hell of a lot more insidious than that. I honestly do. And I don't know if this is going to end with a couple of lawsuits that we have right in front of us, and I'm basing that what I'm seeing over in the real estate industry. Because here's the reason why. Once we get all the listings, once we get the companies, these fintech companies that are now wholly owned or majority owned by the BlackRocks and the Vanguards out there, we're going to need to ensure that close relationship with you that you have with the people around you, which is the reason they're giving you the business and not the Vanguards and the BlackRock companies of the world. We got to make sure that they don't use you. Well, how do we do it? All right, here's what we do. We get rid of the commissions completely of the real estate agents so they don't even have a way of making any money. Let's start with that. Because when you're looking at what the DOJ is coming out and saying right now, well, hold on a second, there could still be collusion. Yeah, well, here's the reason why. Because this lawsuit, hear me guys, this lawsuit didn't address the 5 or 6%, did it? It didn't. It said you got to get it off the MLSs. It didn't address the amount they were paid. So now you bring in the DOJ to dust off a dead investigation, bring it back to life, and say, but there still could be collusion. No, real estate agents could in fact still make money. Yeah, real estate agents could still go out there and earn a living. And that can't be tolerated, now can it? We take away the way that a realtor earns a living or an income. So they vacate the industry. We take them reputationally, drag them through the mud. We buy their technology so we own it. And then when there's a void left, when all the real estate agents are gone, we've already got and have had for years all of the technology in place to go ahead and have automated solutions for all these buyers and all these sellers, and we'll own those companies too. And any money to be made off the United States housing market is going to be made by us. Bravo, guys. Bravo. Now, the problem then becomes is there's another solution in here. And everybody's bantered about all the different ways that this could work. But you see, the thing is a lot of those loan officers have the same relationships in their community that those real estate agents have. See, the BlackRocks of the world, they just don't want your commissions from the real estate agent. They want those commissions from the loan officers too. Well, let's start dragging up a whole bunch of lawsuits. And I got to tell you guys, man, the brokerage industry has made this way too easy. All the mudslinging that's taken place over the past few years, that is such horrible optics. And if you don't think public opinion plays into this, you are out of your mind. You're absolutely nuts. Has anybody noticed how this whole thing has spilled over into the NBA? Like, we just took the insanity that's taken place in the brokerage industry of all this crazy finger pointing and name calling and childish cliques attacking people viciously on, like, all of that ugliness. You don't think that's going to come into play with any of these lawsuits going forward? And the answer is it absolutely is. But this is just part of the comprehensive second wave of attacks, which is to ensure that the BlackRocks and the Vanguards, they control the entire industry. Make sense, guys? Let's get back over here. All right, Open Door, number 1 investor, Vanguard. Number 3, BlackRock. Zillow, Vanguard, BlackRock, right here. And then why did NAR, this is an old, I think this is from like 2014. Why NAR gave News Corp its blessing to acquire Realtor.com and Operator Move. I know this at the time because we actually owned a site called MoveTube at the time, and Move Incorporated wanted to buy our technology and buy our platform, but at the same time they were sending us lawsuits. They wanted to sue us. I'm like, do you guys want to sue or do you want to buy us? Like, I want one person to ask anybody in the media, what the F is the alternative? Because I will show you what that looks like. I have it on my hard drive. Like I said, I spent years doing this. I have so many realtors who sent me settlement statements, who've got pissed off clients. I even had Open Door come to one of my speaking events. They wanted to come to one of my speaking events that I did in Central California. And I said, you want to come and explain to this group of realtors why you're a better alternative for them to work with? Are you out of your freaking mind? I'm like, come on down. So I'm figuring this multi-billion-dollar company is going to come down here, bring their whole group of lawyers. We're going to get on a stage and we're going to have a conversation about why they're right and I'm wrong. I had never seen such a miscalculation from a Fortune 500 company in my life. They had no idea what they were up against. I actually started feeling bad for them because I said, okay, well, hold on a second here. You're offering $470,000 for this house right here, okay? That's what you're offering to buy it for. I know it because I put the offer in right before I came here, and this is what your company spit out to me. This house, which, by the way, I didn't even own. I picked a house in the neighborhood where the speaking event was going. We picked the house in the neighborhood where the speaking event was going on, one we didn't even own, and they gave us an offer to buy it. This is a BlackRock company. This is the alternative to real estate agents. Okay, so you're going to buy this house for $470,000, right? Yeah, we're going to do it. We give great offers. Well, you know what? Why the hell? I got 3 great comps that just sold within 3 weeks that are right around it, that are model matches, and they're all selling for $90,000 more. How in the hell is that a good offer if I've got 3 model match comps right there in the same vicinity that are selling for $90,000 more? Sounds to me like you're making $90,000, which is a hell of a lot more than 5 or 6 commissions, which, by the way, is negotiable. That would be the alternative. Explain that one to me. Well, that could be a mistake. Nope, it's not a mistake because I got 5 more here. I showed them how on their settlement statements that they were making 16%. A realtor is charging 3% here, 3% there, 2% here, 2% there. No. You're charging 14%, 16% on top of picking up that $70,000. I mean, you want to talk about the screw job, it's on. Did you know, by the way, that house flippers in this country are making less money now than they have in previous years? Did you know that? Did you know that the average profit of a house flipper in this country is down to $66,000 on flip? What does that tell you? Well, that tells me that people who are selling their houses to these alternative to going through real estate agents are getting fucking hosed. It's down from like $72,000 last year. And that industry is saying, oh my God, for these house flippers and these investors, the Open Doors of the world, this is really bad. I'm only making $66,000. Well, now you'll get the commissions too, and you'll get the loan too, and you'll get the escrow too. So I guess you can make more money there. In short, the alternative to what we have in place right now with both lender and realtor alike is an absolute bullshit screw job for the consumer. It's going to cost them a fortune. And if anybody watching this in a position of authority thinks I'm full of shit, I'll show it all to you. And yet, for some reason, NAR just walked down the street and just said, okay, yep, you can have everything. They did this from day one. Now, what we're not going to get into right now, which we could get into too, is the builders. At the same time, the Zillows of the world were telling realtors that they wanted to work with them. They are part of their multiple listing systems, and all of our state associations were sending all these like nasty emails out to their representative real estate agents. And now when you're at your board meetings, you can't say anything bad about anybody. That would include Zillow. I'm like, yeah, I'm not saying anything bad about Zillow, but can I tell the truth about Zillow? what they're doing. That's not bad. That's just being honest. And so many of our associations, our state associations across the country, they stifled the voice of real estate agents and they stifled the voice of reason. Just almost like they were just laying out the red carpet for all of these BlackRock and Vanguard-backed companies to come in and do exactly what they're doing right now. And ultimately, guys, realtors, lenders, let's just say I don't give a shit about either one of you. Well, I do give a shit about your clients. Oh, and on those house flips I was telling you, you know what they do? They don't go in there and get the most expensive houses and flip those, because those are hard to flip. You want to know why? Because an expensive house generally has a more savvy seller. They're not going to give their house away for shit, and they're not going to do it because they've got representation and they got their house fixed up. Nope, that's not where they go. You know where they go into? They go into underserved communities and they fuck them over. That's what they do. And this is going to make it even easier because now we got all that representation. We just got rid of it all. You want to see the real hose job? Get rid of the lenders. Bitch about the brokers all you want. They're going to get you a better rate at the end of the day. In spite of this, go look at what United Wholesale, whatever you're saying about United Wholesale, brokers use them 99% of the time. Go put them up against every FDIC bank today and find out who's really fucking anybody. Go put them up against any other alternatives, and I'll bet you across the board, it's cheaper. Isn't it interesting how we're saying that the cheapest alternative on the table right now is screwing people the worst? Where's the sanity? Where's the logic in this? Well, that broker could have taken to a different person. Yeah, maybe he could have. Maybe he should have. I don't know. I don't want to get into that right now. What I do want to say is they still got a better loan than if they would have taken one of the alternatives. Now, what happens when you get rid of everybody? You get rid of the competition. You put it behind corporate walls, corporate protection, political corporate protection. What happens there? Everything gets more expensive, and nobody is talking about that. And we don't need to speculate. There is no conjecture that's needed. We can already prove it. We've seen it. We know how this whole thing works out. We don't need to look back all but a couple of years. The garrisons, my friends, are being manned by the media. The fortifications are politicians. And the generals, well, that's all the companies, the generals, that's all the CEOs and higher-ups over at Vanguard and BlackRock. They are about to perpetrate the greatest theft, possibly the greatest theft in the history of American industry. And from an outsider standpoint, it looks like they got a pretty good shot. The reason is because all we continue doing is bitching at each other. Realtors bitching at each other about who's got better platforms. Brokers are this, brokers are that. Brokers need to get together with the banks too, with the independent mortgage banks. Just take all this ugliness that has just really propped up over the past 5 years. Just get rid of it. Your broker down the hallway, that's not your enemy. It's these huge corporations. If you guys can figure that shit out, then maybe we've got a fighting chance. But this bickering and all this stupid-ass infighting that's taking place right now, the only thing it's doing is it's helping those who've got deeper pockets than even the deepest of pockets in real estate and lending. That's the truth. Now, what we're not going to get into today, but what we could get into, is there's a couple of other points, and I'll touch on it. We'll talk more about this. Is this the zoning laws or the zoning in most of our communities across the country? A lot of the single family residence homes that were set to be built are now being replaced by high-rise condos because we're being told that it's cheaper. And we've got everything in Minnesota to prove that. Minneapolis, this is what the media is telling us, owned by, guess who? You got it. They're telling us, well, what we've done is we've kind of changed what our strategies are over here, and we built more apartments to rent, more condos to rent, and what it's done is it's drove the cost of your housing expense down to the point where it's now cheaper to rent in every major metropolitan area across the country than it is to own a house. Our housing costs have gone down, and that benefits everybody. Yay! Nobody in any of these articles are saying, yeah, but you just made somebody a lifelong renter. You didn't give them the opportunity to build equity and really grow roots in our communities. And we all know with the studies right now, ownership rate, if you have higher ownership rates in every community, everywhere, anytime in history, anywhere in the country, the higher the home ownership rate, the higher the graduation rate is. The higher the home ownership rate, the lower the crime rates are. That's a fact. No one's talking about that. Yeah, but you're taking that off the table. That's what's happening right now. You're taking that off the table. Why is that happening? And the other one is the builders. If you want to do something right now, go to the largest builders in the country. They're publicly traded. Who do you think the biggest investors and most of all, if not all of our new home builders are? You're going to find the same BlackRocks and the same Vanguards at the top of that list. So anyways, if you like what we had to say here today, please share it. I think this message is kind of important. I think somebody should be screaming this, and yet we're not hearing it. Share this with whoever you can. Stick around, and we will continue this conversation, and hopefully we can organize and continue this fight against these insidious groups that not only intend your business harm, but intend your clients, your community, your friends, and your family harm as well. Stay safe, my friends, and I will catch you soon.